Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to Stately Von Manor, where Roger and I have returned because it's Wednesday. That means it's Epic Comic Book Wednesday. Every Wednesday, we'll talk about a certain comic book, graphic novel, or comic book subject. Steve Donoghue on his channel will talk about the same graphic novel, comic book, or comic book subject. It is our world's finest team up that we do once a week. And this week, we're talking about Thor. Yes, we're talking about Thor. No surprise, because I am doing a project, a 1 year project, started on October 5th of last year, will be ending, hopefully, on October 5th of this year. Because in 1 year's time, I have challenged myself to read every issue of Thor from Thor's initial run. And Thor's initial run ran from the early 1960s until the mid 1990s. And then that whole Heroes Reborn nonsense thing happened, and Thor's title was canceled. It was brought back, but it was canceled. And so that was volume 1 of Thor. And I'm reading every issue of that. And so far, I've read them all in the Epic collections. I'm on the 8th Epic collection, which has issues from 1975 to 1977. And this is pretty great. So I'm going to be talking about this today. So in the issues just previous to the ones collected in this Epic collection, Jerry Conway was the writer, and he had taken over for Stan Lee. Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, they had, finished up their initial run of Thor, which was fantastic, and laid the groundwork for all Thor issues to come. But Stan and Jack were gone. Jerry Conway took over the writing. And Big John Buscema, after a couple of issues, Big John Buscema took over the artwork. Now, Jerry Conway, there are some things I appreciate about his run on Thor. He did take Thor to some interesting places. He put Thor into some interesting situations that we hadn't really seen before. And so he did some different things with the book, which, I appreciated. But on the other hand, there were some things that weren't so great about Jerry Conway's Thor. Thor, never the most intelligent character in the Marvel Universe. Sorry, Thor. But Jerry Conway made him, the way Jerry Conway wrote Thor was just a complete idiot. Just the super dumb guy, Thor. Easy to fool. He wasn't at his best as far as that goes. And he was super powerful, though. So Thor was still super powerful. Just, super dumb. And, we had characters running around in the stories that really didn't seem to do anything. It's like, why are these people here? There was that. And the writing, as far as the dialogue was concerned, could be horrible. It just could be terrible. So there was that. But on the other hand, there were a lot of issues with Hercules, and I love Hercules in the Marvel universe. Back when Hercules had a beard, when he shaved, he became a whole other guy. But it was kind of a mixed bag. But then Len Wein took over the book. Len Wein was a writer I know mostly from Swamp Thing. That's who I think of, when I hear Len Wein, I think of Swamp Thing. But he wrote everything. He literally wrote everything in the time that he was writing comics. And he did this run on Thor, which was really, really good. So the writing was really good. John Buscema's artwork was excellent. In the previous issues, we had some inkers that were not always great as far as inking John Buscema was concerned. But on these issues, the inking is really, really good as far as inking John Buscema. So we get some great artwork. When this epic collection begins, Len Wein takes over and he has to wrap up a storyline that Jerry Conway was writing. Odin had disappeared and the Egyptian gods had shown up, and that was a pretty cool story, actually. But that is being wrapped up here. And almost immediately, Odin starts acting like a dick. So Thor has been hanging out with Jane Foster. And Jane Foster, had actually been very helpful in finding Odin and helping Odin came back. Odin doesn't care. She's immortal, and he's pissed that Thor is hanging out with Jane Foster. So he acts like a dick, as Odin does. And so Thor's like, screw you, I'm still going to hang out with Jane Foster. And so he goes back to Earth, and Odin goes back to Asgard. And Odin's pals, the Warriors 3, go back to Earth with him and have some of their own adventures. But then this giant robot shows up. So this is something that happens in New York in the Marvel Universe fairly regularly. You will have a giant robot show up, and your main character, in this case Thor, has to fight the giant robot. So Thor fights the giant robot. And it's a pretty good fight. But in the next issue, we find out that the robot belonged to Zarko, the Tomorrow Man. That's Zarko, the Tomorrow Man there. Now, Zarko was a really lame villain from the early issues of Thor. But when Len Wein brings him back, he's not quite as lame. He is really evil, though. He is really evil. He's actually a tyrant in the future. He's a tyrant in the future, and he's come back with this giant robot, not to conquer the 20th century, as you would expect, but to enlist Thor's help, because it turns out that there are these strange beings that might destroy the Earth, including the Tomorrow Man's empire that he has created, and he doesn't want that. But these beings are too powerful for Zarkon to take care of on his own, so he has to go back in time to get Thor. Thor is like, okay, even though you're obviously super evil, I'm going to go and travel in time with you to battle these mysterious beings who might threaten all of Earth. Meanwhile, Odin in Asgard is going insane. He's clearly going mad. Something is very wrong with Odin because he's become a tyrant. He's gotten rid of his old advisor, the Vizier. And he's gotten an evil advisor that was locked up in jail. And, things are going very badly on Asgard. But while Odin is going crazy, Thor is busy in the future because he has to fight the Time Twisters. Those are the Time Twisters there. Now, the Time Twisters, they dance through time. They twist through time, and every time they go back in time, because they're going back in time to find the secrets of the universe. But the problem is the great energies that they expend when they, leave destroy the planet. So they keep going back in time, and they go here, planet is destroyed. They go here, the planet is destroyed. Every time they leave, going back in time, it's just everything is ruined. But they don't, even when this is pointed out to them, they're like, okay, well, that's tough, isn't it? So we have a really cool, I think it was a 4-issue story, where Thor has to deal with these super powerful time twisters. Also, he has to, put up with the fact that he's in an empire in the future which has just gone to hell because the Tomorrow Man is an evil tyrant who is really evil to his people. And now they're being slaughtered by the time twisters. So we've got a lot going on in this story. We've got some moral dilemmas going on. Meanwhile, in Asgard, Odin is clearly going insane, and Balder the Brave, Thor's good friend, realizes, Odin is off his rocker. Something must be done. What's going on with Odin? And this is a mystery. Why? I mean, Odin always could be unpredictable. He always could be a dick, but he's never been a completely insane tyrant before, and that's clearly the way he's going. Meanwhile, the Time Twisters are bringing back warriors from different ages to battle Thor. And the artwork is all great. It's all great. And, here Thor fails and the Earth is destroyed. So they have to find a way to defeat the Time Twisters even after the Earth has been destroyed. And some of the artwork by John Buscema, the artwork by John Buscema is just so good. And we get we get so much good stuff. I mean, the artwork is just a joy in these issues. And the storyline actually wraps up in a pretty interesting way, which I will not spoil for you because I know people, they hate the spoilers. They hate the spoilers. Then we have a couple issues with Firelord, where Firelord shows up. They're all right. They're okay issues, but you really want to get back to Asgard because you want to find out what the heck is going on with Odin. Why has Odin gone completely insane? And so we have a little bit of an adventure with the Warriors 3 all on their own. They have their own kind of solo story there. Look at that. Look at Thor. He's so awesome. So there's Thor flying around with Jane. Now, Jane nearly died, but Thor's girlfriend, Sif, saved her life. But now the spirit of Sif is in Jane Foster. And so he has two girlfriends in one. It's an interesting situation. And he has to work that out too. He's got a lot of dilemmas. Meanwhile, we get these just fantastic action scenes all throughout this issue. There's a lot of battling in this issue, or in this epic collection, I should say. Meanwhile, Odin has gone completely insane. Here he is saying how Thor must die, his own son. He's saying Thor must die. What's going on, Odin? What the hell? So something is going wrong with Odin. So Thor finally fights his way to Odin. He confronts Odin, and we learn the secret of why Odin has gone insane. But don't worry, I won't reveal it to you because, I know how you hate spoilers. And oh my God, he's the Mangog. All this time, Odin was the Mangog? That's I spoiled it. I spoiled the issue. I spoiled the whole. Odin was the Mangog the whole time. Damn, I'm sorry. I spoiled the story. Yes, it's the evil Mangog. The evil Mangog, one of the most powerful Thor villains of all, who has the power of 1,000,000 beings. 1,000,000 beings. He has the power of 1,000,000 beings. Anyway, and he's just so awesome. Look at him. He's the Mangog. That makes sense now. Odin was the Mangog the whole time. And so, but the Asgardians don't know that. And so Thor has to create a rebellion against the Mangog, who's acting like Odin. And so we have more fights, a lot of fights in this epic collection. It's all awesome. And then while they're on Asgard, Jane Foster becomes Sif once again, Thor's girlfriend. So, two girlfriends in one, like I say. Sometimes she's Jane Foster, sometimes she's Sif. It's awesome. What a great situation for Thor. It's a little weird, but that's the way it is. Anyway, meanwhile, more fighting. So we get more fighting. I won't tell you what happens, but there's a pretty good chance that Thor prevails. But then we've still got a problem because Odin is missing. So now Odin is missing. And they have to find out where Odin went. And he runs into Ulik, the troll, and has an adventure with Ulik the troll. And then we have issues where Thor has to go in search for Odin. And so that's what happens towards the end of these issues. Thor has to find a way to find Odin. And eventually he does. And in the process, actually, he runs into the stone men from Saturn again, which are the stone men that he fought in his very first adventure. Because Len Wein likes to bring back these old Thor villains and make them less lame than they were when they first showed up. The stone men from Saturn, they're frankly still pretty lame. So Thor and his companions, they take the Starjammer, which is a boat that can fly in space. Don't ask me how. It's Asgardian technology. And they have some adventures searching for Odin. And that's how this epic collection closes out. Meanwhile, the Grey Gargoyle, another lame villain from Thor's past, comes back and is somewhat less lame than he was before. But we also get the Enchantress and the Executioner return. We haven't seen them for a long time. They are not lame at all. They're awesome. And so there's a lot of stuff going on in this epic collection. I mean, it is just full of action. And at the very end of the epic collection, we get the title story, which is from the king-size Thor annual number 5, War of the Gods. War of the Gods, which is an interesting story because War of the Gods was originally drawn not to be in the color comic book. It was originally drawn to be in a black and white magazine. Thor did make one appearance, at least, in a black and white magazine, but this one never made it. I mean, Marvel Comics had a whole line of black and white magazines, Savage Sword of Conan, bunch of other black and white magazines, which were created to rival the Warren publications. And they thought about bringing the character of Thor into black and white magazines because maybe he's a fancy type character. Maybe he would be popular like Conan in that format. Didn't really work out so much, but we had this story that was originally written for the black and white magazine. And you can tell because the size of the actual pages are a little bit different. And the feel of the whole thing is a little different. We get a lot of background on Asgard and on Thor. This story takes place long before Thor became a part of the Marvel Universe, because the Marvel Universe hadn't happened. This is hundreds of years ago. So it's a story from the past. It's completely awesome, as you can see. But it's interesting because Thor himself, he's very young. He's kind of a hothead. He doesn't have any of that sense of humility that Odin sent him to Earth to get. He has a very short temper, and he runs afoul of the Olympic gods, and he decides that he wants to go to war with Olympus and Hercules, to just show him who's the tougher gods, I guess. And of course, Thor and Hercules have to have another fantastic fight. Now, this apparently was the actual first time that Thor and Hercules met in the distant past. This was the actual first time. So a bit of a retcon in this story. The action in this story is fantastic. We get a great battle between Thor and Hercules. So then Zeus, the leader of the Olympians, the Greek gods, decides, okay, you want a war, we're going to have a war. So they go to war, and it's incredible. It's an incredible story. I mean, the artwork is just fantastic. It's just great. So this story, which originally was supposed to be in a black and white magazine, was moved over to this annual, and some extra pages, I think, were put into it. And it's just a great story. We get the Warriors 3. We get all our favorite characters battling. And then we get the Valkyries, because this story is a little bit more violent than you usually see in Thor, which makes sense considering where it was originally supposed to appear. And a whole lot of people die in this story. I mean, it's a big massacre. And the Valkyries have to come and show up. And so it's like, well, we won, but was it worth it? But did he win? No, there's a final twist at the end. Odin was just teaching him a lesson. as Odin did before he was replaced by the Mangog. Sorry about that spoiler. Anyway, so that was this. That was Thor, War of the Gods. It's fantastic. It's a high point, I think, so far in my reading of Thor. It's great stuff. Really creative. Len Wein is a really good comic book writer. And the artwork by John Buscema is magnificent. Okay, guys, that's all I have to say this week. I will catch you next time.